Peace, love, and light, y'all. Welcome back to Ask Java Therapist, the new edition. And this edition is going to make sure that we know what depression is, we know how to fight depression, we know how to combat it, and we know how to recognize it in our friends and families and loved ones. So today's series is brought to you by my book, Battle Depression Now, Cognitive Behavioral Theory Techniques for helping to overcome, cope, and battle, and eliminate and eradicate all symptoms of depression. All right, so this video is just going to specifically talk about the symptoms of depression. And sometimes you'd be surprised. It's not always presenting as something withdrawn and sad and sullen. As I read the following symptoms, I want you to think about when you felt like this, or another loved one or friend or family member felt like this, and perhaps we may have been misinterpreting whatever they're presenting with actual symptoms of depression. So here we go. According to the DSM-5, depression means having the following symptoms for a period of 2 weeks or more: feelings of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, hopelessness, angry outbursts, irritability, frustration over minor matters. So when you think she has an attitude, or when you thinking he's not acting like the man you want him to act like, the anger, the frustration, the irritability, perhaps we need to do some further investigating. Perhaps we need to suggest that that man or woman or child gets assessed in a screening for depression and see what might be the underlying issue for that irritability, that sarcasm, that quick-wittedness that people like to call it, that being short. So that may be mistaken as a sign or symptom of depression. Loss of interest in one's pleasurable activities, including sex. Some people love to play basketball. Some people, they loved to lift weights. They loved to go to a certain location and socialize with peers. They loved doing a certain behavior, activity on the weekend or after work or in the mornings before work. And then you notice that that person doesn't quite engage in those activities. Or maybe it's you. Maybe you don't feel compelled. Maybe you make excuses after excuse after excuse as to why you no longer do this thing. But upon further introspection and investigation, maybe one of the reasons we aren't doing those things anymore is here a symptom of depression, a loss of interest in one's pleasurable activities, including sex. She's no longer in the mood. He's no longer in the mood. It's not a reflection on you necessarily, your level of attractiveness, your level of intimacy with your partner. It really has to do with a loss of interest, just a byproduct, a symptom of depression. When you're depressed, you probably don't feel as sexy. When you're depressed, you don't feel as connected. When you're depressed, you don't necessarily feel as intimate or as wanting or motivated to get up and engage in physical activity, which sex is. All right. The next symptom is sleep disturbances, including insomnia or sleeping way too much, excessive sleep or not enough sleep. Some people's depression manifests in sleeping for hours throughout the whole day, sleep the whole day away. Some people's depression manifests in having legit attempts on trying to fall asleep, but are just completely unable, having to know they have to be at work at 8 in the morning, but yet it's 4 in the morning, they've been trying to sleep since midnight. And that's true too. So a lot of the times we might be in bed with our partners. You think our partners are no longer interested in laying in the bed with us. But in all actuality, our partners just can't sleep. Our partner might be going through a symptom of depression, a bout of depression. So it's just manifesting as the inability to sleep, and that inability to sleep is manifesting as my partner is not in bed with me. They're downstairs, they're upstairs, they're doing something else. And that person may just be trying to cope with the inability to relax, focus, and get rest, and to have mental clarity enough to allow yourself to fall asleep and be at peace and be asleep. which leads into tiredness, lack of energy. Small tasks take great effort sometimes when you're depressed. That lack of energy may be a byproduct of not being able to sleep. So no energy, which impedes your focus and concentration, motivation, ability to socialize, ability to accomplish tasks. So yeah, it all ties together. All of these symptoms just tie together and just mix in one pot to make a ingredients that's going to be a surefire way for sadness and depression. Reduce appetite, weight loss, or in some cases increase appetite and weight gain. And these are going to be extremes. These are going to be extremes where everybody knows you as being one size, and because of your depression, you're another size. Whether it's really smaller and lost substantial amounts of weight, haven't hit the gym, haven't had an appetite, or the other way, on the other side of the scale, where you're eating excessively as a way to cope with sadness. You're eating excessively, and that way, you know, it's some people's learned behavior or learned mechanism for how to cope with sadness. Sometimes excessive eating may be an attempt to feel happy, to reach those connections of food in the brain, which gives you endorphins, which releases neurotransmitters for the feel-good drug dopamine. So maybe that's an attempt of that depressed person to try to get that dopamine rush. So they try to keep eating. They go back in the past. What once gave me pleasure? Chocolate cake. What once gave me pleasure? Mama's fried chicken. So I want to try to do that to gain pleasure. And even though it's failed attempts, mix that in with the low energy, the lack of motivation to work out, or poor judgment at that time, and it just leads to excessive weight gain, which can lead to even further sadness for our circumstances. Anxiety, agitation, or restlessness, the inability to stand still, excessive worry going into the future, which leads to anxiety. Excessive worry or sadness that leads to the past leads to stronger feelings of depression, because they're both uncontrollable. Past regret, can't do anything about it, equals depression. Future anxiety, can't do anything about it, leads to anxiety. So we have to stay in the moment to avoid feelings of these anxiety, agitation, and restlessness. Meditation helps restlessness. So a lot of the times when we're dealing with depressed loved ones, we might see them pacing a lot. We might see them wanting to leave the house and go out into the community to blow off steam. And these are all byproducts of depression. That's that agitation being manifested there. Slow thinking, speaking, or body movements. And this is something that we really have to know our partners to be able to recognize, or know our loved ones or our friends in order to recognize. That person may be excited, full of zeal usually, talks at a great pace with great energy and enthusiasm. But lately you've noticed that your friend hasn't been speaking with that pace. Your friend hasn't been speaking with that zeal or enthusiasm. They've been having slow thinking, slowed down speech, very apathetic, very slowed down body movement. You know, if you notice, I talk with my hands a lot. And in moments of sadness or depression, you might see a person like me who talks with their hands a lot and very animated, not be as animated, very sunk, very sullen, and very low energy, low motivation, slow speaking, slow speech, slow movements. Those are all byproducts and symptoms of depression. Feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, self-doubt, and fixating on past failures. Moments of imposter syndrome, like I'm really not supposed to be here because of these things that I did stupid 10 years ago. Those are byproducts of depression. Oh yes, those are byproducts of a negative spirit and a destructive energy within you that has creeped up in you somehow, that with work can be removed. Because the trouble of feelings of worthlessness and guilt, you are a star. You are God's child. You are an important cog in this universe that makes the universe go around. One screw. You ever built something? Do it yourself? They give you all the parts, and then we got a couple parts left over, and you're like, oh, it's fine. Those parts aren't going to do anything. You go to use the item, and then using it, whether it's the first day or the first month or the first year, you notice that it's not doing something as precise as it needs to be, as it's designed to be. It's because of that one screw threw the whole system off balance. It threw everything off momentum. That one screw he thought it wasn't going to make a big deal threw the whole system out of whack. And you are important. You are even that one screw in the 8 billion people here on planet Earth, and the whole mechanism, nature, trees, seasons, sun, moon, and stars. We're just as one of us is just as important as all those other things I just named to make the world, to make the system complete, to make the system balance, to make the world go around. So, yeah, these are feelings of worthlessness. That's what the negative spirits want you to think. Because negative energy hates balance. Negative energy hates harmony. Negative energy hates motivation and love. So if you're experiencing feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, self-blame, fixating on past failures, that's what the negative forces thrive on. That's what they want out of you. So we're going to do some great work in identifying these symptoms and coming up with a blueprint on how to eradicate them. Trouble thinking, concentrating, focus, making decisions, memory. Yes, depression affects all of those things. So when you're with your loved one and they don't remember what happened, maybe it's a sign of sadness. Maybe it's a sign of depression. Maybe it's a sign of anxiety. Focus and concentration. You can't go to work and be the best version of yourself. You can't show up as a parent, as a friend, brother, nothing, being the best version of yourself when we have trouble thinking, concentrating, making decisions, self-doubt. And all of those things are necessary components to success. So when one of those areas are impeded, our journey to success becomes that much more difficult. You find yourself not being as sharp as you once were in school, sharp as you once were at work, sharp as you once were with being charismatic and influential. You start to question yourself. Feelings of focus and concentration start to impede your ability to be the best version of yourself. Oh yes, these aren't just random occurrences. This may be a sign of deeper seated stuff that we can process. Frequent or recurrent thoughts of death or suicide. I mean, we saw it in a lot of the 90s rappers. No, 90s rap was all about death. And even the great Biggie Smalls had a song called Suicidal Thoughts. Tupac Shakur flirted with songs that talked about suicide and all that other stuff. So yes, frequent or recurrent thoughts of death or suicide is a marker, a significant mark, especially in children. If you hear a child talking about death and suicide, all my antennas really go up, because that's a critical time. That's usually a moment of just glee, happiness, invincibility. So when a child expresses these, then I stop everything. I do it for anyone, but when a child does it, it's really telling. Unexplained physical problems such as back pain or headaches. Oh yes, this is probably one of the most talked about, underrated symptoms. It's not really spoken of how depression can manifest as physical pain, can show itself and come about as physical pain. Headaches, backaches, chest pain, and those can actually develop into developing real symptoms, real medical disorders, if the spirit and the mind aren't cultivated and taken care of and nurtured in the way where everything is in harmony, body, mind, and spirit. So that's just a quick little blurb for today. Battle Depression Now, you can find on Amazon, or you can find on my website, www.evergreentelecounseling.com. That's evergreentelecounseling.com. Or you can reach me at www.evergreencommunityoutreach.com. Find me on Instagram, supreme.west. Find me on Instagram, CBT Depression Book. Find me on Instagram, Evergreen Community Outreach. One love, peace, love, and light. It's been a pleasure, y'all. And I will see you guys next time. One love.